Hello, I'm here. I'm so excited to be with you, and I'm so honored to have you with me. So, thank you for joining me. Thank you for bearing with me because we had a little hiccup backstage earlier during this event. So, please kindly do open your chat box for me right now, and I'm going to open it as well. And I have this question for you to start with. And please just put a number into the chat, very intuitively, spontaneously sharing with everyone, if you will. Now, here's the question. On a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable do you feel when thinking about your career? With 1 being not comfortable at all, and 5, couldn't feel better. Now, let me see. I see a 4 coming in. I see a 2.5. Venkatesh, what else do I see? Just share your numbers. A 5, a 6 even. Oh, wow. What else do I see? A 4. 4. Lots of 4s pouring in. 5. Strong side. Now, and even in case you're, rather at a 2 or 1, and you may not even have shared that, I'm sure this session is for you. And with this, Anirvan, I would like to start with my welcome slide. If you can pull that up for me kindly. So I officially welcome you to our session, How Mental Fitness Helps to Progress Your Career. There are actually quite some breakthroughs in neuroscience and technology I'm going to share with you. And should you have a question during the session, you have seen that before in the other sessions, I suggest you put it into the chat so it doesn't get lost. However, I thank you for bearing with me until the end of the session, because then I will be happy and relaxed to answer any question that may have been unanswered. Now, over to our topic. Since the event started this morning, the psychology of career development was actually presented and filtered through very different lenses, right? This talk here is meant to look at it through your lens, taking your and to think of something like this, right? Before our inner eye, we usually see a linear movement, and there the trend goes upwards, right? More or less. Next slide, please. And in our mind, it's probably rather not like this, right? So now in our subjective reality, our career path may actually rather look like this. And we've heard about this before today. If we zoom in on the different phases we have experienced in our professional life, we will see that in most of the cases, our journey has not been linear. Rather, it will have occurred in a, let's say, wavy movement, closely linked to important events and decisions in our private life. And this may have caused high points and lower points, and sometimes maybe even interruptions and dips in our career. And when thinking about it, we may recognize a development. That is the notion of personal and professional growth, possibly even with a slight upwards trend of the curve, depending on how you feel about it, really. Now, to make it a little bit more tangible, I thought I'd share a little more about my own success story, just so you know why we are in this together today. And Anirvan, maybe let's go to the next slide. Well, you see, after, what I would call a minor orientation phase, I started my career in my mid-20s as the founder of my own business, which was an agency for communications and design. We managed to grow in team size, revenue, and impact. And 7 years later, I had reached a point where I felt ready for a change. For me, it meant to take the leap into a highly matrix corporate world and into a pretty exposed leadership position. Not only was I communicating to hundreds and thousands of people now, I was also on a mission to improve the engagement of the entire HR function worldwide, comprising thousands of HR professionals, working closely with the top management. In hindsight, I must say, I consider this to be the most successful time in my professional life. And a roller coaster between nerve-wracking pressure and great relief and joy. In parallel, my private life took a turn. I got to know the love of my life. This is why I pivoted my career, changing jobs and countries again. The biggest change, however, concerned the corporate culture, which turned out not to be a great fit for me. We're looking at Siemens Healthineers now. Now, with a world-spanning awareness campaign added to my track record, I decided 2 years later to move on to Amsterdam, together with my husband. Soon, I was hired into an interesting role with growing responsibility and impact over time. Now, for the last 2 years during that time, I had just poured my heart into the activation of a new corporate purpose, when suddenly the company split in two. This is why I pivoted again, determined this time to follow my own purpose. I got trained and certified as a coach, and ever since I have helped high achievers to unleash their mental power so they can do what makes them thrive. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Well, when thinking of my career and namely the milestones and achievements on my path, there's also another reality to it. And I usually prefer to keep it to myself, to be honest. And I guess we all do, because we all seem to experience it. It's about the price we pay, day in, day out. When thinking about my talk to you, actually, and what I want to share with you, this question became evident. Anivan, please. How come that our happiness is not in sync with our success? Well, pondering about the question, when in my life I have experienced a sense of fulfillment, inner balance, and peace of mind, my journey would actually look something like this. Anyone? Yeah, the peaks of my success hardly ever brought the contentment, joy, and lasting happiness I would have hoped for. Quite the contrary, I have to admit. Looking back, I vividly remember actually how depleted I felt very often in my life. So, as we explore the psychology of career development today a little further, let's dig down a little deeper here, aligning with actually the amazing workshop we enjoyed with Hutton earlier today. Just so we are aware, let's remember the following. Anyone? You will never speak to anyone more than you speak to yourself. When facing a new challenge on your career path, the words you tell yourself might rather not be something like, I've never tried this before, I'm sure I will be brilliant, just to quote Pippi Longstocking here. The next slide exactly. Rather, will it be something like, I must be best at what I do, or I'm going to fail, or if I work hard enough, I can control it, so it goes my way. Or I need to shut out intrusions. Or you may tell yourself, I'm not good enough. not good enough to apply for an interesting role, not good enough to speak up in a meeting, not good enough to take your fate into your own hands. Now, does any of this sound familiar to you? Just give me a yes in the chat, just in case it does. Oh, I see. Yes, 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 coming in. Eric says yes. Hutton says yes. Tracy says for sure. So I'm happy this resonates with you. So actually, what's the root cause of that constant negative self-talk? Stanford lecturer Shehzad Jamin has done some long-standing research with 500,000 people across the world and different stakeholders, ranging from literally hundreds of CEOs and their teams to star athletes. It resulted in his best-selling book, Positive Intelligence. The subline reads, why only 20% of teams and individuals achieve their true potential. Now, since last year, I have the pleasure to be working with Shehzad directly, and I must say he's such an inspiration and also a role model in coaching to me that I want to share some more about this approach. Well, if your positive intelligence is high, it means that your mind acts as your friend far more than as your enemy. And you can actually train that capacity significantly, which is what we call mental fitness. Now, over to the next slide so we can have a closer look at those enemies inside our mind. Maybe one back. Exactly. Yes, we want to focus on this guy here. This guy is our inner judge, or you may say inner critic. And the inner judge is a universal saboteur, spanning cultures, age groups, and genders, as Shehzad's research has made very clear. There are actually three different modes in which we are biased to judge. We judge ourselves, we judge others, and we judge the circumstances. So depending on your bias and what you do most, you will see an enormous impact on how you deal with your career progression, for instance. If you tend to judge yourself, you may feel overwhelmed, insecure, and maybe not entitled to step up your game. If you're quick to judge others, you may often feel frustrated, hopeless, or angry about the mediocrity around you. If you have a bias to judge rather the circumstances, it will have a paralyzing effect on you, preventing you actually from taking action. On that note, I probably spent months in my life thinking, well, when this or that reorganization is over, I will be happy again. And then I will start to take care of this or that, just fill in the blanks, important topic of my life. Now, being able to identify your inner judge marks actually the first step to defeating all those self-sabotaging lies. These lies we tell ourselves unconsciously are preventing us from flourishing in our career and in our personal life. But as if this was not enough, and now, anyone, click on the next one. Yes, Shehzad presents us actually with 9 more saboteurs. Well, at least not 50. That's the good news. The controller, the hyperachiever, the restless, the stickler, or you may say perfectionist, the pleaser, the hypervigilant, the avoider, the victim, and the hyper-rational. They present a set of automatic habits of your mind, each with its own voice, beliefs, and assumptions that work against your best interest. So there are 10 saboteurs in total, and we all suffer from at least a couple of them. Well, how come, you may ask? Well, formed in early childhood, these saboteurs helped you actually to survive physically and emotionally as a kid. You will not consciously remember, But very likely, when you were a kid, there was a time that you promised yourself that you would protect yourself. So bad things wouldn't happen to you as often, even if you consider your childhood to have been happy. Your saboteurs actually were the buddies who helped you keep that promise. By the time we are adults, these saboteurs are no longer needed, but they have become invisible inhabitants of your mind. So when we are faced with a challenge, our hardwired reaction is still that of a 4 or 5-year-old child. Well, you may argue now that you would not be where you are in your life if you had not been able to push yourself, just, according to the motto, no pain, no gain. And frankly, this is what I thought as well at first. The question is, are negative emotions good for you? Next slide, please. Is pain good for you? Next slide. Next one, anyone? Yes, here we go. Is pain good for you? Negative emotions are only good as a 1-second alert signal. Staying in negative emotion hurts your ability actually to see clearly and respond with empathy, curiosity, creativity, or laser-focused action. Saboteurs take your greatest strength and turn it into a disadvantage as they overuse it. So in short, saboteurs are great at winning one battle, but they are not helpful in winning the war. The war of overcoming stress, pressure, and fear when taking the next step in your career development, for instance. Now over to the next slide, that you don't have to look at this awful stuff anymore. So saboteurs motivate you through negative emotions. Literally speaking, they keep your hand on the stuff all the time. And actually, this is how we create our success most of the time. It comes with a price if you think about it. Now, opposed to that, you have the sage. Your sage is the one in you that handles challenges with a clear and calm mind and positive emotions. And when you are in that state of mind, most of the time, about 2/3 of the time, you will experience much more happiness. Just as a little experiment after the event today, maybe not right now, but after the event, you may want to draw your own success story, as I did, and your happiness curve, and see what you notice. The key question is, how do you actually shift from one state of mind to the other? And the short answer would be with practice. Self-sabotaging habits are like a strong muscle in the wrong parts of our brain. That is the reptilian brain focused on survival. And you cannot change old mental muscle unless you build new mental muscle. It's as if you learned how to tone a nourishing mindset, a clear calm, so you can handle challenges most effectively. This is actually processed in a different part of your brain, the emotional brain and the limbic system. But here's the thing. Commitment is a choice, your choice. It will depend on the price you pay right now for your success, your negative emotions. So if you're determined to create lasting change, how can you access the 5 powers of your wise self, the sage? Well, unfortunately, I can't tell you everything about it here now, but a first opportunity. And by the way, did you know that symbols and metaphors are much more powerful than our rational thinking and 80% faster? Just to remind you of the sage perspective, You may actually want to wrap yourself a little gift and put it right in front of you so you can see it standing on your desk. Now, with systematic support for daily repetition, you can learn to use negative emotions as a helpful alert and then quickly shift to the positive region of the brain that has you deal with a challenge most effectively. It takes 6 to 8 weeks of intense training until you will have taken on a new habit and start to notice a difference. And this difference will be actually measurable in your neural pathways that will have grown stronger in your emotional brain. An MRI scan would show that, as Shazad has proven in his research many, many times. Now, over to the next slide, please. When you start to build your mental fitness or your positive intelligence quotients, you learn the following. Number one, you get to know your inner saboteurs so you can recognize the lies they're telling you. You can recognize when you are actually hijacked by one of those hardwired reactions, reflexes. Number two, you learn how to access and grow the strength of the 5 powers of your sage. Empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. Number three, you train your self-command muscle so you can actually silence the sabotaging thoughts faster and switch into the nourishing neutrality and calm focus of your sage. For measurable results that will really make a difference, you need to invest about 3 minutes, 3 times daily for 6 weeks at least. And there is an app and of course, my heartfelt support to help you do that. Now, if that resonates with you and you want to navigate your career towards more happiness, which will bring more success as well, by the way, what can you do? Please, over to the next slide. I recommend you take the free saboteur assessment first to discover which of the 10 saboteurs is doing harm to you right now. And in the next step, make use of my free gift to you and get your free coaching session to discuss your results so you can explore the possibilities that are opening up for you. Just a hint, use the special event code RTI Thrive when reaching out to me. My offer to you is valid a month until April 18th, and I'm happy to hear from you. Now, next slide, what I can do is I'll put those details in the chat so you have them. The next slide, this is actually how you can reach me and follow me and connect with me. And at this point, I'm very happy to have your questions if we have time. Thank you, anyone, for moving those slides. What is the name of the app? It's the Mental Fitness / Positive Intelligence app. And as you can see in the chat, I have prepared the link for you to that free assessment. It just takes, 2 minutes or so. And it really gives you a score of the saboteurs that are, preeminent for you, that are really representing your bias. And you may have guessed there are quite some big differences between, for instance, a bias to, be hyperachieving and pushy. And, I, for instance, to share with you very frankly, I have a hyperachiever saboteur and a stickler and a controller. So you can probably guess, how much pressure it was for me to progress my career because I wanted to be best at what I did. And I wanted to be structured and organized in the way how you can silence those voices, how you, and they will not go away. I don't want to promise you anything which cannot be kept, but you can silence them significantly and shift over into your sage. And there is a trick to it. I actually also share that trick on my Instagram account. If you follow me there are lots of tricks and tips I'm sharing there. And of course, also our free session would certainly give us time to explore a little bit more about that. Marielle says, I think I need that book, and I do recommend it. It's really a great read, and it's also fun because Shirzad is such an amazing and warm person, very vulnerable in how he shares. So I do recommend that. What else do we have? The link of the article does not work, I see. Should I try that again?
Work with me.
So if I share.
Now she's sharing this app.
That's a different link to a Forbes article. Okay, I thought I share the link to the assessment with you first, because that will also bring you to everything you need to know about positive intelligence. But of course, there are lots and lots of interesting other sources out there. Slay the saboteur, says Hutton. Yes, that's exactly what we're up to here, and it's doable. It's doable in only 6 to 7 weeks time. I can tell from my own experience after decades of having searched for more peace of mind. Otherwise, I wouldn't be so passionate about sharing this with you. So
there's a question from Pauline. I think she asked, how bad of a saboteur is a perfectionism?
How bad of a saboteur? Well, that it depends really how how big your pain is that you subjectively feel. If you tend to be a perfectionist and to be very structured and do everything in a way which is impeccable, that's great. It's a strength, but it turns to sabotaging you if you're actually trying to, or if you're starting to suffer from the pressure you get from that, the pressure from being perfect and having to be perfect in everything you do. And that's really a matter of your own expectation. Because as I said, going back to those old survival mechanisms when you were small, when you were a kid, you probably found that it was a great solution to do the best you could do and make sure that it would be as perfect as possible, so nobody would offend you or get in your way. So it has been a solution, but if it's causing pain now, for me it has caused pain to be 150% prepared with everything I did. And at some point I realized, okay, 80% may be enough. It's still enough, but it is very much about your own negativity, your own emotion that you are perceiving actually, and how you're suffering from it. Did that answer the question? So what else do we have? I see yes. Paulina.
Yeah, so does anybody have any other last question for Sandra? I'm sure people would love to hear how you overcame your saboteurs in your personal journey. Maybe a leaf out of that would be a good thing to share.
Yeah, actually, it has been, I was given the opportunity by Shirzad to test his positive intelligence app together with a couple of friends, coaches actually. And we went through the 6 weeks experience, the program together. And for me, it became just a new habit. I was literally building my muscle of, becoming aware of how I kept self-sabotaging, how much I kept, controlling also my private life here, for instance, and knowing that my husband, for instance, has a completely different set of inner saboteurs, a pleaser and an avoider is popping up there, which are quite the opposite in their pattern to what I have, my bunch. I realized, oh my God, this is really creating such a big difference if I learn how to stop my sabotaging habits with a little, it's a body awareness exercise, and there are lots of those exercises on the app. Actually, just a 10 seconds interruption, like rubbing your fingertips with such a tension that you can actually feel the finger ridges on your fingers. And if you do that just as a little experiment, when you're, in your mind clutter, you may realize that if you really focus on your finger ridges, you may change your entire energy. You may feel a calm and peace of mind because you're shifting out of your mind, actually. And that's what the app helps you to do regularly. That's the self-command muscle, actually, that you're training in, in your emotional brain. So you can really shift out of that sabotage mode. What I haven't mentioned is that both modes, the saboteur mode and the sage mode, are contagious. So that really is important if you think of, your team. If you go through the exercise, through the program together with your team, you will see amazing changes happening because you're all in it together. Everyone has their set of saboteurs. But if you grow your understanding of how we are hardwired, how we react to certain, triggers which happen all the time, those challenges around us, and then you let that go quickly and shift over into that nourishing mindset, that appreciative mindset, empathy, curiosity, innovation, activation, and the purpose focused mindset, it makes a huge difference. And it's also true for your private life, for your relationships, as I said. Was that helpful, I wonder? Sort of like tapping, yes, it's true. And the thing about those little exercises, those interruptions that you see on the mental fitness app and the little mental fitness gym, which you find there, is that you can do them immediately when you feel under stress. Believe it or not, before starting my presentation here with those technical glitches I experienced backstage, what did I do? I rubbed my fingertips to just shift out of my nervous mind. And I was nervous, of course. I was excited and I was kind of all over the place, but I just used the technique that I had learned and shifted into that other stage of mind, confident that everything would be just okay. And I hope it was for you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sandra. And as usual, it is every time I hear your presentation and hear about the saboteurs, it makes me think. And I'm sure there are people in the audience who would get benefited. I already start seeing some thank you notes coming in. So thank you again. And I think I'm just trying to see if there's any other chat or questions left. And for the people, you can get in touch with Sandra. She's already shared her email address, but also, join us at our LinkedIn company page. We'll definitely connect you with Sandra. And
maybe there's one more thing I would like to mention.
Sure.
Be sure to have a look at the fabulous e-magazine that Anirvan and Devyani are producing and have already published yesterday. And you may find a voucher actually for the free coaching session with me. I will be super happy to be in touch with you and just have a talk and see, what are your challenges? How do you actually experience your saboteurs on your inner stage? Thank you.
Thanks for saying that, Sandra. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So with that, we come to the end of the session. Now we'll be shortly moving to the roundtable discussion. And we'll be just going off the screen for a couple of minutes while we set up the backstage. And thanks again, Sandra. Sandra Schmoldt.
Thank you, anyone.